Hello, and welcome back to Let's Get Lit. In today's episode, we're going to be going over the Franklin's Tale from the Canterbury Tales. In this story, we're going to see a woman and her husband, what someone does when they are desperately in love, and is it all really worth it in the end to use sorcery? All of that and more. So, let's jump back in time and see what happens in the Franklin's Tale, shall we? The Franklin's prologue is very short, sweet, and to the point. Basically, he says that he knows of a story that's been told a long time from the first Breton. He says please forgive his speech because he's not really lofty or colorful, he's very plain, so please divulge him time and hopefully they'll be entertained. The Franklin starts his story by telling of a very heroic and brave knight named Arveragus, and how he wanted nothing more than to have a wife. He truly finds a wonderful wife whose name is Dorian. After many advances and trials that she puts him through, she realizes that he in fact would make a wonderful husband. So they get married, and they're married for about a year where they live in peace. Arveragus is called off to Britain where he's gone for 2 years. During this, his wife mourns, wails, fasts, and cries at him being gone. Her friends try to cheer her up and get her out of the house, so that way her spirits can be lifted. They try everything, and one day they bring her down to the coast where she's looking out at the sea. She starts to panic and get worried because she looks and sees all of the huge rocks that are there. She starts to get worried because she realizes that many men have died due to these rocks, and that makes her miss her husband even more. One day there is a dance that has been staged in a garden, and her friend convinces her to go to become a little more lighthearted. While there, a young squire named Arveragus is there, and he is the best dancer and a very handsome man. We learn that he has been in love with her for the past 2 years, but has dared not to say anything to her. When he finally gets up the courage to tell Doreen about this love for her, she chastises him and tells him that she is faithfully wedded to her husband. She also says playfully that if he can clear every rock off of the shore of Brittany, she will love him. Arveragus tells her that it is impossible, to which she responds, coveting another man's wife is also very bad. He soon leaves her full of despair and sighing back to the party. The narrator notes that only she and him know about this interaction, and she goes back to joining her friends. Arveragus goes back home and cries to the gods for help so that he may have her love. He makes a plea to Apollo and to Phoebus and asks if they can be some sort of flood that can come in and help bury the rocks beneath the water, or if the rocks can go under the ground to Pluto's domain, and by this hopefully winning his lady's love. His brother, seeing all of this, then picks him up and starts to care for him. The Franklin then goes on to say that Arveragus comes back and Doreen is so happy that they make merriment and dance and laugh and hold each other. The narrator also mentions that he has no trace of thought that she could have possibly talked to anybody else because he knew the love she had for him and he for her. The narrator then jumps back over to Arveragus, who has been sick for the last 2 years, in bed from heartbreak. His brother, who is just a regular commoner, remembers that he has some friends who live up in Orleans, France, who are practicers of the dark arts and of the occult. He thought that his friends might be able to help his brother and that would cure him of all of his ailments. When his brother goes to him, this makes Arveragus so happy that he immediately jumps up out of bed and they start their journey off to Orleans. Before they could even get into the town, a young clerk greets them and says that he knows exactly why they're there. This astonishes the brothers and they join him back at the house so they can talk over the plan. While they're at the clerk's house, he shows them visions to prove that he is a master of the dark art. They can see fields with deer, they can see water, and they also see Doreen. After these visions, which took place in his library, he calls out to his squire and asks if the dinner is ready. The squire says that it is, and they all feast. After this, the brothers go to sleep and Arveragus has some of the best sleep he's ever had. The next morning, they talk about payment and how much it's going to cost, to which the clerk says it would be £1,000 for him to do this service, to which Arveragus says that that's a bargain, and he agrees to. They then set off towards Brittany so that they can prepare for this monumental task. The narrator notes that it is December, and due to the cold, everyone's wishing everyone a happy Noel. Not long after this, all of the rocks are cleared from the beach. Arveragus then goes to Doreen and tells her that her request has been completed, and all of the rocks along the shoreline have disappeared. At this point, the author also notes that her husband has gone away but will be coming back. Upon hearing this news, she immediately goes into despair and starts crying because she didn't think that he would actually be able to get rid of all of this, and she said it more as a mockery or of a joke. And for the next 2 days, days, she contemplates suicide as a way for her body not to be desecrated by another man, but remain holy to her husband. When her husband comes back on the third day, she tells him everything, to which he tells her that she has to keep her promise and her oath. The wife is devastated because she doesn't want to be with anybody else besides her husband. The husband says not to worry, and he tells one of the knights to take her to a certain place, but the wife and the knight have no idea what's going on. The narrator then tells the audience not to worry and to save their tears because there might be a way out of this. As she's going out of town, Aurelius sees her and they meet in the streets. Aurelius asked her what she's doing, and she responds that she is going to the gardens as her husband has commanded her to meet up with Aurelius because the husband did not want her to break her end of the oath. Doreen then tells him everything and about how she would rather have committed suicide than break a promise or a pact with her husband. But when the husband hears this, he says no, and that a promise is a promise and she needs to keep her end of the bargain, and that he would live with the shame and the torment of what the wife has done. When Aurelius hears all of this, he is overwhelmed by the purity and nobility of all of their actions and choices. So, in an act of selflessness, he actually sends her back to her husband because of the choices that all of them made. When she hears this, she is overwhelmingly happy and joyous, and she goes back to her husband, where they live out the rest of their lives in pure bliss and love. Now left with the realization, Aurelius is going to have to pay that £1,000 back, even though he didn't get the woman he wanted. He manages to scrounge up £500 and goes to the scholar who helped him with this incredible task. He goes to ask him if he can pay a partial payment now, but over the course of 2 or 3 years, pay him back in full. He tells the scholar that he is good for the money, but that if he needed it all up front, he would lose his inheritance and his sovereignty. The scholar asks him, does he not have the woman that he wanted, to which Aurelius says no, he does not. Aurelius then tells him everything that has happened, and the scholar says that due to everyone's collective noble choices that they made, he's actually willing to let Aurelius out of debt and will not accept a single penny from him. From this news, Aurelius is very glad-hearted and very thankful for the scholar. He then goes out upon his horse and rides back home. This is where the Franklin's Tale ends. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Let's Get Lit. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. And as always, stay lit.